Hello, welcome to the branding of physical media. This is kind of like a part 2 to the previous video I did, which was the confusion of physical media. That one particularly emphasizing importing and how to get different versions of your physical media in terms of basically just how region codes can be a real bitch for some people, which is fair enough. I have two different players. Both of them, one's 4K, plays Region B discs because I'm in Australia, it's a Region B country. My other player is 4K as well. Nice. And it's also all regions. Why do I not use that one the most? Because it's Sony. I don't like Sony that much. But also it doesn't use Dolby Vision properly, so I like using Panasonic. It's just a thing. But that's the thing, isn't it? Panasonic or Sony. Or like my TV's LG, my receiver is a Denon. But then there's physical media and brands. Criterion, Arrow Video, Studio Canal, Imprint, Second Sight, a lot of boutique labels mostly, I want to emphasize that. There's of course your added things like, the Sony home media releases, Disney, stuff like that. But I think most of the focus of this will be talking about stuff like Second Sight and Criterion and Arrow Video. I want to talk about the branding of physical media. This is mostly an emphasis on, and a look at, from my opinion at least, just people who have loyalty to different brands, which, I tried that. It wasn't worth it in the end. Obviously, everyone has different brands that they like to go to. If you were one of the recent people who saw the Criterion announced Videodrome on 4K and Don't Look Now on 4K as well, you're probably like, yes, finally! They're finally being released on 4K. Hopefully with the asterisks in your mind saying on Criterion, because they've obviously been on 4K in other labels on other countries for a number of years now. Videodrome came out on 4K very recently in the UK, courtesy of Arrow Video. Then, of course, you've got Studio Canal releasing Don't Look Now on 4K a couple of years back as well. In Australia, they're known as Classics Remastered, so you could even get them in Australia. I know, that country, with all the prisoners. So, worth noting, there might be some biases in this case, but it's worth investigating whether or not you should have, brand recognition, whether or not you should be like, I want to be strictly Criterion or strictly Arrow Video or whatever. In reality, it doesn't goddamn matter. For example, I bought the Criterion of Videodrome a few years back. Really nice packaging, great special features, good transfer. I really liked it. It's great watching it. It was fun looking at the special features. The other week, I bought the 4K UHD from Arrow Video. Mostly because I wanted the 4K UHD transfer and they had a 50% off sale. And it had different special features. I don't know how many different special features, but it had different special features. Lo and behold, now they've announced Criterion is doing a 4K UHD with the exact same artwork of the previous release. And that could be great for people who hadn't bought it before, like when they announced Mulholland Drive on 4K UHD. I was like, finally, I can buy this. that being for Criterion. I actually decided to get the 4K UHD from them, which I bought stupidly from Zavi. Shouldn't have done that. Probably would have been safer from Amazon. Nevertheless, I bought that because I was like, I'd been wanting to get the 4K I'd been wanting to get the Criterion for a while. My brand recognition on that being the fact that Criterion had done a bunch of David Lynch releases, and I love David Lynch's films, so I've bought a bunch of David Lynch releases from Criterion, with the only exception currently being the Elephant Man, which I've got 2 different versions, 3 different Blu-rays of, but they're all Studio Canal releases, aren't they? Yeah, there was the Australian release from them, then there was the 4K release, which I got from Zavi, and it turns out I had accidentally ordered the Blu-ray release, but it was still the 4K transfer. And then I ordered the 4K UHD because I could get it really cheap on Amazon. I could have gotten the Criterion, but I didn't because it was the 4K UHD is a better version of the transfer because it's a UHD. But also, I don't know, I just wanted the better transfer, I guess. Same special features I already had, I just can now give away that disc to one of my friends or sell it off or whatever. Even though eventually I'll probably end up getting the Criterion as well. I did the same thing for Inland Empire because I already had a Blu-ray, but I'm like, I'll get the Criterion because it's a Criterion, And to be fair, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like, I don't mind doing that. Cronenberg's another director, again, like with Videodrome, who it's like, I've bought a bunch of different releases from different brands. I've gotten Kino releases, I've gotten Criterion releases, I've gotten Arrow Video releases. I've gotten just standard, regular goddamn Blu-rays for some of his films. It's just how it is, you know? It gets to a point where it's like, there's no point trying to delineate. Like, I got Dune from Arrow Video on 4K. Criterion haven't done an Arrow Video. Criterion haven't done a Dune 4K release. Like, at all. I don't even know if they ever will. I don't know if they have the rights to it. And that's another thing that I feel like is worth noting as a little side tag. Yes, different companies have different rights to releases in different countries. Hence why Criterion maybe can't do a Region B release of certain films of theirs in like the UK and whatever, because that's actually distributed by Sony, to my knowledge. I believe they're changing that, but over the past couple of years it has been Sony who have been doing it in the UK, which is really interesting. But it's to do with the rights of the film in different countries. Kind of just had to note that. Nevertheless, do you need to stick with a certain brand? I can understand buying every single label of brand releases. Say, in Australia we have Imprint, and I'm on the Imprint Facebook group, and a lot of people like buying every single release, even if the films themselves kind of suck. You know? Like say, the recent Haunting of Julia release. There was three different countries that released it. You had Studio Canal's 4K scan. Oh, was that a 4K UHD? I think it was a 4K. It was a 4K UHD. Theirs was titled Full Circle, which is the UK title of the movie. I don't know what special features that they had. I didn't look too much into that release. Because for me, the release was a comparison of the second sight version, which was a 4K UHD, Dolby Vision, and its own special features. Even though the Blu-ray disc, yes, Region A, but the 4K all regions. Or the Imprint version, which was a very, in particular, deluxe edition to some degree. It lacked the fact that there wasn't a 4K UHD, which, if it was a 4K UHD, I probably would have bought it. It had unique special features that the other versions didn't have. It had its standard case, reversible artwork, a thick box around it to some degree with a lenticular cover, the same artwork as the US release, but lenticular. It just wasn't a 4K UHD. And, I mean, it came with a booklet as well. I think some art cards too. So, like, in its own right, both of them were really good releases. So it's like, well, do I get the Imprint one, which was $75? And I was like, oh, you know, I don't need to spend $75 on a film that I might not even like, compared to the US release, which I think I got for like $35 or something, which is pretty... Actually, no, I didn't. I think I wanted to. I think I got it for $40 to $50. I got it from Cinemaniacs in the end, but I got it with two other films, and I had a $30 voucher. So I don't know, it worked out pretty well for me. Nevertheless, I could have spent the extra pocket or waited for a sale at JB, or actually for their EFS sale, they were like, hey, here's the set for like 50% off or whatever, or 25% off. So I could have waited for a sale or something like that, and to be fair, I've still bought a couple of the Imprint versions, like the War of the Worlds release. I got the Steelbook release because I liked the artwork, I liked the Steelbook design, and that also was a Steelbook. The booklet was nice, and it's a 4K UHD, even if it doesn't have the red Mars color grading that the Criterion release had, even if the Criterion release was a standard Blu-ray and not a 4K. That would have been great. I would have loved to have bought the Criterion release, but instead I went with the Imprint release because it was a 4K UHD. I figured, look, it has that extra touch to it. Sure, Imprint probably isn't as fanciful in terms of name brand as Criterion. Actually, that's just a straight fact, I should say, because like, you say Criterion to a boutique collector, they'll know what you're talking about. You say Imprint, I don't know, I don't think you're going to get as much recognition, which is fine. It's a growing label. But, yeah, I have a lot of films where I have looked at different releases and I've been like, do I get this release? Do I get that release? Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a really prominent release in that regards to me because I bought several releases for that movie. I bought a 4K Steelbook release, which was like a Best Buy exclusive, so I imported the Steelbook because that was a 4K release, 4K transfer, not a 4K UHD. Didn't come with many special features. I happened to stumble on eBay, someone had the second sight steelbook, and I'm like, oh, same transfer, but an extra disc full of special features. And then the Australian release was like, hey, Umbrella, we're doing a release. Here's it's basically their previous release of the movie that they already had on Blu-ray, which was the 40th anniversary 4K transfer, with the same special features that Second Sight had, but it came with different artwork, a regular case, an O-card that was limited edition with its artwork, and a poster, a Dayville type poster. So I got that release as well, because I just kind of wanted a standard release of the film to some degree. By standard I mean not a steelbook, so realistically I can sell off both of my steelbooks. If I ever get around to it, sure, I'm trying to sell off the Region A one, doesn't really matter, I can sell both. I actually probably should still sell both, there's no reason not to. Nevertheless, then Second Sight comes out a few months later, like 2 months after I've bought my Umbrella release. They're like, hey, look at what we got, it's a 4K UHD. Most people predicted it because Turbine had done a 4K UHD release. Oh, was it Turbine? No, I don't think it was Turbine, but there was a brand in the US that did a 4K UHD release. And so people expected that the 4K, well, Second Sight still had the rights to it in the UK, so of course they actually came out with their own. And that was the one I ended up going with, rather than the US one, which I probably wouldn't have gone anyway. I was very adamant, don't get the 4K UHD, you don't need it. You've already got the 4K transfer, and none of them look as good as they did when you actually watched the film projected in a cinema. No, not 40, 50 years ago, but I saw it in like 2017 as a retrospective thing for Toby Hooper after a few months after he'd passed away. They happened to show a film print, and I was like, yes, film print, I'll watch that. I have a whole memory about it, loved it. Anyway, I got the 4K release from Second Sight, because I still love the brand of Second Sight. I love all their premium edition releases. I'm gonna get their Crimes of the Future release, because even though I've already got the 4K UHD, I'm a stickler for Second Sight. Like, I'm not as much of a stickler for Criterion, but if it's David Lynch, I'll do it most of the time. Again, Elephant Man's the only exception at this current rate, but that's just because I can get a better transfer elsewhere, even though special features are probably... Actually, I don't think the special features are any different. I think it's just like a booklet where it's like, oh, it's this booklet, but the booklet is just an excerpt from a novel, like an interview book that I already have, because that's what they did for a bunch of Criterions, except for like Inland Empire. So, yeah, but that's also why I didn't mind getting Inland Empire, because it was a new 4K scan. Oh, a bunch of special features, all that kind of stuff, which I didn't have on my kind of very bare bones Blu-ray release. Nevertheless, yes, I got the Second Sight version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Honestly, one of the best 4K releases I have. Definitely my favorite of their releases. That's saying a lot, because I really like their release of Drive and their release of The Witch. They've got a lot of great releases. So, and I actually really enjoyed watching it with the Dolby Vision as well. Like, it was as close as I think it would look to a film print, and I really, really liked it. In contrast to the previous Blu-ray releases, which I had literally watched the 4K scan from my Umbrella release a few months earlier, just to rewatch and be like, do I need to get the 4K UHD? So anyway, brand recognition is important. It always has been. Like, you can get your major label ones like Disney and Sony and whatnot, but at the same time, you know, there's boutique labels, they're important too. They're important to me, they're important to you. And these can be different things. These could be stuff like boutique premium steelbook labels, or big limited edition sets that like a hardbox things like, say, Turbine, or... Actually, there are a lot of different brands. I can only think of Turbine right now. But stuff like that, stuff like Vinegar Syndrome, you got 88 Films, you got all these different brands that sell different films. Some of them will occasionally cross over. Mostly it's the case of that I've seen in the past has been Studio Canal, with occasionally Imprint as well, Criterion, and Arrow Video. Either Arrow Video or Studio Canal will have the same release, because again, it's the same country, so usually one or the other, but that's like your half and half, whereas like Australia, it's Imprint, or again, if it's a Studio Canal release, it'll be... Actually, that's kind of surprising, I'll be honest, that Haunting of Julia wasn't a Studio Canal release in Australia as well. Instead, Imprint got it. That's, I think, the only exception I've noticed so far. That's, I don't know, interesting to me. But still, you know, I wouldn't have if it was Studio Canal or the imprint release. If there was no Criterion, then actually that wasn't Criterion, that was Kino. But if there was no Kino release there and it was like one or the other, I probably would have gone with the Australian release over the 4K UHD from the US, from the UK, and that's just because I would have preferred to have like given the imprint my money in that regards. And in all fairness, of the occasion, I have still seen their release on shelves at JB Hi-Fi or whatever, and I've still debated. I'm like, maybe I should have gotten that release. Maybe I should still get that release. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. So far, I've decided against it. And I've kept with the Kino release, and I still like the Kino release. The film's fine. I didn't love it. I thought it was good, but you know. So, yeah. There's no real concerns with buying the same movie from different brands, I don't think. Because again, I've bought now Videodrome from 2 different boutique labels. From Criterion and from Arrow Video. And I've had different perks there, because of course Criterion was the first release I got. Wonderful artwork, wonderful cover, wonderful set design, and great special features, great transfer. But then Arrow Video has a 4K UHD transfer. It's completely remastered, plus extra special features that are, you know, unique to their release or whatever. So it's like, great. That benefits me twofold, because now I have the Criterion release and the Arrow Video release, and I've got 2 different transfers, you know, different commentaries, different special features. So I have everything I could possibly want from 2 different brands, and I'm like, that's pretty good, you know. And I don't know how much I'd spent on Videodrome back all those years ago when I first bought it, but I know that this new release, well, not even new, this 4K UHD release from Arrow Video was pretty cheap for me because I got it on sale. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you're arguing price-wise, I wouldn't go full price on 2 different releases of the same film from 2 different companies. I'd be like, find one or the other. In the previous video, I'd mentioned Cinderella as a big release. And in that case, it being like, do I get the 4K from the US/UK, because they're basically the same release? Or do I get the Australian version and then try to find the old Australian Blu-ray release to get the old Blu-ray special features? That's the one I opted for in the end, but that's not really a brand recognition thing. That's more of a region coding thing. And that's also another big thing, is that region coding is a lot of the reason, and importing, hence why this is basically a part 2. This is all why, like, brand recognition is such an important thing. Like, a lot of people in the UK probably would love to import Criterion, same as people in Australia. But, you know, import fees, there's a lot of shipping fees to get stuff from the US, hence why we have stores, retailers here who actually import that stuff in and sell it. So I can buy from them. It's a bit dearer, usually, but then at the same time, you gotta figure in to some leniency, because I don't always love the big expensive prices that certain stores might have. But at the same time, I might find these stores and be like, oh, this is this release of this film. It's expensive. Like, say, Dead and DVD had their release of Roadhouse, which is the Vinegar Syndrome release, but it's the 4K limited edition release. Magnet case, all that kind of stuff. 75 Australian dollars plus like $9 postage. I bought it with 2 other movies. It made sense for the whole entire thing. So I basically spent roughly $75 to $80 on the film. And honestly, do I think that was a worthwhile price? Yeah, I kind of do. Like, it's a really expensive for a 4K, but for a 4K limited edition set, you get the O card, you get the booklet, you get a slap bang of special features, 3 whole discs in the set. 4K transfer is immaculate. Stuff like that, I'm down for. But a standard release of a film, that's when I'll, you know, weigh it up and down, you know. And by standard release, sometimes I even refer to Criterion releases or Arrow Videos, because it's like sometimes it's just maybe just 1 disc or whatever. It depends. I like how Arrow Video do 4K UHD discs sets, and to make it cheaper, they put all the special features on the 4K disc, and they don't have a Blu-ray, and that's usually fine by me. That's how I've done a bunch of like Dario Argento films where I've bought their 4K limited edition sets because I only had the standard Blu-ray releases that they had from Arrow Video. And it's like, hey, well, I still have the old Blu-rays, but now I have everything, and it's now on a 4K disc. Plus I have the booklet and the poster and all that kind of stuff. So that stuff's kind of fun too, even if it's a standard edition like with Videodrome. Yeah. It's definitely nice to have the variety, to have the options. And as an overall end-all be-all, it is just what it is. The branding can depend on you and your country, like where you live, and it could be simple as that. It could be an envy thing of like, I'm envious that they have Criterions and Criterion label, big name, blah blah blah. Like, sure, I might see a Criterion label thing and be like, I could get that instead of getting this release. You know, I've definitely hesitated getting a bunch of different releases that are just standard Blu-rays in Australia. Say like a bunch of recent Cronenbergs, like Eastern Promises. I got the Kino 4K release because I was like, that wasn't exactly a branding thing, but it was also like, I like Kino, they're a nice brand, but at the same time, it's a 4K UHD release, Blu-ray disc included, a bunch of special features, new transfer, that kind of stuff. That's the real kicker for me when it comes to branding. So, like, contrast that to the standard Australian Blu-ray disc from, like, Umbrella that's been around for, like, the past 15 years. And I'm like, it's the same shitty old release that they had, just repackaged because they were able to renew the contract, but they didn't do anything special for it. It's like, well, what's the point then, you know? That's one of the only ever occasions where I'm going to be very stickler about branding in terms of, like, who's releasing a film. Because if it's like, you know, again, same goes for The Elephant Man. I went for the 4K UHD from Studio Canal over the Criterion, even though the Criterion probably has better special features, but at the same time, if my memory serves me right, I compared the two, and I was like, I can get the Studio Canal release because they're basically the exact same version, just one happens to be Criterion, so one happens to have that label name to it, which I don't think initiates it being a more expensive purchase, but it kind of does in my mind because it's usually imported and stuff like that. But unless it's from Amazon, then usually it's still imported, but usually cheaper. I don't know. Nevertheless, it can be a decision. So in the end, it's up to the beholder. It's up to you. I have a variety of different releases from a variety of different brands. Would I like to stick with just one brand? Maybe, but at the same time, I don't know, I'm happy with a variety. You know, I'll get a film from Imprint here, and I'll get a Kino from there, and a Criterion from there, and Arrow Video release there, or an Umbrella release. It doesn't really matter. They're all different, or maybe they're all the same. And I just kind of go with what I can. Sometimes I like it to be cheaper, sometimes I like it to be more valued, you know. Like, again, $75 for Roadhouse is a lot, but in terms of the value for what it's worth, yeah, especially the limited edition nature. Like, if it was the standard edition, maybe I'd be a bit more like, oh, it's just a, 4K Blu-ray set in a standard case with maybe an O-sleeve. I'd be like, I'm not going to spend $75 on that. But spending $75 to get a big case with it and a booklet, maybe you can wow me a little bit, It's still a lot. In all fairness, it's still a lot of money. But, sometimes there's the wiggle room from experience that I'm like, yeah, this can make more sense than just buying that or buying that, still. Or just streaming it. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all my thoughts on that. Let me know your opinions, and I'll see you next time. Adios.